Aloha and welcome back to Goddess Unleashed. This is Diane Vick, and on today's episode, I'm interviewing another guest from the Crappy to Happy series, another fabulous author that does some amazing things that I've never heard of. So I'm excited to interview Jess Campmans. And first off, I want you to introduce yourself and tell them what you do, because I think it's so unique.
Thank you for being here. And so I call myself an equine guided sacred messenger. I work in partnership with horses to help people find what it is that they're looking for, even if they don't know what that is. And so with the horses kind of will show people who they are being and what their untapped potential is. And my part of it is as an intuitive to tune in and share the messages and the insights and information that I get through watching the horses and being with them, because I get messages to kind of share with them that helps them find something that they need to heal an aspect of themselves or discover a deeper meaning of their life.
That sounds really amazing. And these events where you're helping people, do they usually occur in a one-day sequence? Are there like retreats?
They're all encompassing. So I can do that. I do a lot of it this year in this way, like just with my phone and video out with the horses, and the horses will be behind me. I can do it like I've done it in workshops. I have a retreat going on usually once a year. It's happening right now in a live stream session, kind of like this, one-on-one sessions where people come out, but it works. Even if like just standing here in this space with you, I could be able to do it right now. So we just kind of dive right into whatever's coming. I say whatever's being highlighted in your energy field. And then depending on the amount of time we have, we can go really deep or just give you whatever messages you need in the moment.
Very cool. I didn't even know you could do this virtually with the horses behind you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you're being featured in the story, the Crappy to Happy story. Tell us a little bit about your specific story in this book, because there's so many amazing authors. What's yours about?
There are so many amazing authors. Mine in this book in particular is about going to my first workshop ever. It was a Healing with Horse Symposium. And I forgot to book my plane ticket. So I ended up driving 18 hours to get there. And on this trip that I finally got to be by myself, I just started encountering an aspect of myself that I had, I guess, kind of forgotten about. And when I went to this workshop or this weekend retreat, there were so many different sessions that the horses and these facilitators of this work helped me tap into something that was deep within me that I'd kind of repressed for quite a while.
Absolutely. I think we all repress stuff. I know this past particular week, I've been experiencing a lot of symptoms. And what I talk about in my book, which is The Truth About IBS and Anxiety, is that the symptoms that we exhibit in our body has an emotional and a physical root. It's our stress response turned on, but there's always some emotional reaction of us letting go of self-limiting beliefs and things that are stopping us. So I know how hard that journey can be. How does your process help facilitate that for people?
I love this question, and I didn't know what you did, but I love that you shared that perfect kind of lead into this. So what I do is pay attention to what's going on with you and what's going on with the horses, and then I kind of connect them and feel into and watch the physiological response in regards to what I'm receiving as information. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so then offer just, I guess it's kind of what I do is offer back what it is that you or someone else can't pick up, because we have this thing that we're doing to protect ourselves from, or that we've, done that. And that's what the horses have taught me, is that whenever I see them doing something, I bring it back to myself, because they're mirroring what it is that I'm not conscious of. And so even if it's something like lifting up a foot, you think that should be, and we can train horses to do all of these things. But what I've realized through this process is I've given them a voice. And so they always get to tell me exactly what it is, so that I'm not training them. I want to find what it is that the deeper meaning of why I'm not able to relate to them in that moment is, and what they're sharing with me. So that if I go back to the analogy of picking up the foot, if they're not a willing participant, then why is that foot stuck to the ground? And what does that mean for me? And so I feel into my body and receive the information as much as I can to help them show me that I've recognized why I was stuck down to the ground, or why I was resistant to them releasing that foot to me.
Interesting. Okay. So like when I do coaching calls, I don't channel with an animal, but I can sense, what's going on with a person, what symptoms they've been experiencing over the past week, and then go within and get the answers as to what is there an emotion that's connected to what's happening to them. What's the best strategy that I can give them for that week to help them release that emotion.
Yeah.
So it kind of aligns, even though they're so different. It's so amazing how people can find different strategies to tackle their self-limiting beliefs and to really unveil who they are in such a beautiful way.
Yeah. And I love that you shared that, because that's exactly kind of how I work too. It's just alongside with the horses. So they amplify everything that, I can do it without them too, but when I have them in this space, they just bring a whole nother depth and aspect. And like I said, amplification of, because they hold space and in a non-judgmental way. That's why animals are so powerful in healing. They don't have limiting beliefs. They don't have stories. They don't have the response with the logical brain. Like, they just have that innate response, that instinct, and they actually help us go really deeper into that intuitive realm of being able to be in touch with our physiological responses and the insights that come through those responses, and just able to feel the emotions that we maybe have been holding on to, and then that creates the those body awarenesses that are telling us, like, you need to pay attention here.
That's beautiful, because I think as a society, we have been trained to ignore our gut instincts, to ignore the messages that our body is sending us, as if it's such a bad thing, but it's actually an amazing thing and an amazing opportunity for us to understand ourselves in such a deep way.
Yeah, very much. And that began, like, we were born with that because that's how we stay safe in the world, and that helps us survive. But when we just when we don't know what to do with it, and we've never been taught how to utilize that system, it actually, we hinder ourselves, right? I know you probably have felt that too, right? We hinder our progress because we just use it as a survival mechanism, but we can actually tap into that gut instinct and those intuitive responses, and that innate intelligence, and use that to thrive. And that's what the horses teach us. They show us where we're just surviving, and then they show us actually this pathway, or they hold space for this pathway for us to feel into something that is far more expansive than just that.
That's beautiful, because I understand how these beliefs can stop us and how we can get stuck and we can't get those messages. I've even felt it. Like, I've felt stuck over periods of time. And this last particular week, I've had all of these weird symptoms. I'm like, what is happening? But it's really my body becoming aware and really letting me know what are these leftover self-limiting beliefs that are trapped inside the organs of my body, inside my tissues, so that I can finally push through. Because my biggest fears is the fear of being heard and the fear of being seen. So being on this podcast and recording some of my videos live is a big step for me. So I can feel that resistance and that push to stop me.
Yeah. Same thing. Those are probably two of my biggest fears also. And so what I started doing probably 4 or 5 years ago is doing videos like this to help me, you know, process that and work through that and actually have to show up like that. And as I started doing them, the horses would gather behind me and I would just kind of start to channel or feel into whatever energy. And I just began to recognize, wow, this is really something, like something's happening here. And so then I would just, you know, tune into the energy of the day and I would give like a daily energy forecast with the horses. And then I started doing it, having a client opposite me, and the horses would almost just constellate. So like they would show whatever that client needed to see and also hold space and help release, like help be part of that release process, and invite them into the present moment, right? Which is where we can't hold on to all those beliefs and stories, all through this medium. So it's just fascinating.
That is very fascinating. It's super cool. I read something, a quote on your website, I believe. We can only deny the path of our soul for so long. What does that mean to you?
um, so this trip that I took, that I was telling you about a little bit before, prior to that, I had a lot of gut issues, and my lower back, I couldn't bend over to put on my socks. That's how bad it was. Just a whole bunch of things that were telling me, but I didn't know it at the time, that I wasn't following this path that was true to myself. Like I was denying this ability to be intuitive and empathic and tap into all of this as information. And so this trip actually allowed me, and funny how things are very synchronous. I went on to book a ticket and realized 2 days before I was leaving that I'd never actually booked the flight. And so then my husband said, well, why don't you just drive? Okay. So got in the vehicle and started driving. And it was just that ability to give myself space that finally helped me be able to begin to get in touch with all of the things that I hadn't been in touch with for a long, long, long time. And then enter the horses. And that was kind of when I'd heard about this. It's called equine guided healing, or equine facilitated healing, or learning, or therapy. And so this was my first experience with this work in that way, with me being well, we're always the recipient, right? Even you and I, if we're on the other side of someone guiding or coaching, we're still receiving whatever we need to out of the session also. But just being in that space, I recognized that there was so much of this world that was connected to my spirit, and all of the emotions that I'd been burying. And I remember saying, I just don't know if I can do this because I have so much anger inside me. And then I just started to cry in this one session. And I thought, and I mean, that's the beauty of horses and these people that come to this space. We all hold a safe space for each other to be able to do that in, you know, release these emotions that we've been holding on. But I just remember thinking, I have so much anger, but anger is a protector of sadness, right? Of something that we've lost and didn't have the ability to grieve for. And what I realized I'd lost was my connection to spirit, like to my spiritual self, to my soul. And so that denying the path of your soul for so long, eventually your soul, you know, has these things happen, and the universe helps by creating these scenarios and situations. And within our body too, our body tells us, you can't do this anymore in this way, right? Like you need to pay attention. And so there was a lot of body issues I had. But then that weekend, it all kind of began to unfold and come out. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I also suffered from tons of issues. I don't know if you know, but I had chronic pain, I had fibromyalgia. Half of my body was numb for 20 years. The worst part was the digestive symptoms, which is why I ended up publishing that book, because it was the hardest thing for me to tackle. Because this morning I literally had IBS and I haven't had it in months, and I looked pregnant, but I got rid of the symptoms very quickly because I'm able to process those emotions and really sit with myself. And I think a lot of the times we don't take the time to honor the way we feel and step aside from situations to feel and experience it and release the emotions.
Yeah. And I love that word honor. I think we grow up and we, as little kids, maybe honor ourselves, right? You just go and play and do this. And then all of a sudden we have these situations that we're in, or relationships that we're in, that as empaths, we pick up on whatever is not being said, and we kind of take that, and then we don't really know what to do with that, especially if we're not in a world where people understand, that to allow people to feel emotion. And so, yeah, I have 4 kids, and after the 4th one was born about 2 years later, I still looked pregnant. That's what my gut was telling me, how much I was holding in there. So I can relate. And this past week, actually, it feels like there was so much changing. And so I've been having stomach issues where all of a sudden I realize this is happening again. Like, what's going on here? But I think it's just bringing up a lot of stuff that is still kind of deep within us that needs to be moved through us.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we experience it as empaths in conversations with other people, in situations, as we absorb from our environment.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize we're doing it. And then it's when it really hits us, is when these symptoms are there. It's time to process them and figure out what's going on. And anger is one of those that we hold in our liver and our digestive tract. And I know, because I had to have my gallbladder taken out, and I was holding on to so much anger. Had I realized this so many years ago, I would have avoided surgery. But it's hard for us to realize that we need to go within to get the answers, that the answers aren't outside, that they're within. And it's beautiful that you can use horses to help get you that message for people that they don't hear, that they don't sense.
And the horses, too, when people watch them, it's like it triggers something in them to be more in touch with their own body. I think because horses and animals in general are so grounded. And so as soon as you can actually create a space for yourself to ground your energy inside your body, that helps us become more aware. So even just watching the horses and being in their presence, and even if it's just, through a video, that opens up a whole doorway for people to be more in touch with themselves and to not resist so much.
Oh yeah, we resist all the time. Our little child wants to protect us, and we resist every single day.
Yeah.
Tell me about I found some really interesting phrases on your website. The no longer feel held back by fears of the unknown. What does that mean?
Well, that means that for much of my life, I wondered, why is this happening? And the answer was unknown to me. But if we fear going into the unknown to retrieve the answer, because of whatever we might find along the way, that can actually hold us back from our ability to get the answer. And what I've recognized within myself is all of the things that I was really scared to find out about, because I had a lot of horses that died in my care over the course of my lifetime. And I was just really scared of what, if I tuned into these horses, what I would receive as I was a bad person, or I didn't know how to look after them, or there was just something that kind of held me back from wanting to know why they left me. And when I finally began to understand the dynamics of death, it actually helped me be able to tap into these horses and recognize that there was such a space holding, and animals don't see death as we do. They inhabit a body as a soul, and they come here to assist and support us and guide us and help us become better humans, by them being able to show us. And so I had a lot of horses that died due to colic, that I had babies born. I had a number of foals that were born over the course of my life that were born deformed, so they actually couldn't nurse, and their legs, their joints eventually would give out within a couple months. And they never even made it to a couple months because they didn't even have the ability to stand up. And well, if they stood, eventually their joints would give out because they were so weak. So I had to put these foals to sleep. But I held a lot of that as guilt within me. And so when I was finally able to say, okay, I need to find out why this is happening. Like, why does this keep happening? Why do these horses keep dying? Why are they leaving me in such traumatic ways? Then I was actually able to really tap into a bigger picture of the cycle of life and death, as well as the space that animals come to be part of our lives through, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes sense. And it's beautiful that you can figure all that out by going within. I know that what I created within the last few weeks was a grief hypnosis meditation, because I have this free group. I call it Unleash Your Inner Strength. And I like to create meditations and hypnosis because I know a lot of people are processing emotions. And I think grief and guilt is one of the big ones. And that's actually the one that I use today for myself, to figure out what are the emotions that I'm holding in my stomach right now? What do I need to release? And we have the power within us to go within, but we don't always want to seek the answers.
Yes.
But it's amazing that you can seek the answers by actually using the horses, and that there's so many different modalities for people to find whatever works for them to get their own answers.
Yeah. And that's where having these conversations too, it sounds like you and I work very similar to each other, but just in a different way. And so with as many people on the planet that there are, none of us come here, I don't believe, with just, this free ride and beautiful life. I mean, yes, we can find aspects of that, but we all have this thing that we have to work through and move through in our life in order to become that, what our soul.
All right, well, welcome back. Energetically speaking, something happened and our podcast went away for the past few minutes, but Jess is going to finish off her story before we close off this episode. Let us know what you were saying.
So if I go back, I'm trying to bring it all kind of forward again. I think I was just sharing about how if we can get in touch with doing this for ourselves, and then we become the vessel or the channel to be able to offer it outside of ourselves, it just creates this beautiful ripple effect. Because just like this, meeting you here in this space, and we're kind of recognizing in each other, the healing that can happen. And by stepping into that, we're following the path of our soul that's calling to us, like, become more of who you are, right? And so as we do that, we actually hold space and open the doorway for people who come to us to do that also. And it just kind of creates, like I said, this ripple effect out in the world.
And I think that's our passion, right? Is to transform the world one person at a time. So everyone that listens to this show or listens to your show is getting a little piece of the beauty in going within and understanding what's happening in their bodies. And both of us got the same message when we had this huge technological issue, was that we should be doing this live outdoors. So we're going to come back on another episode, do a full episode, just Jess and I, and we're going to be outdoors. So I'm going to be outdoors doing my thing. Jess is going to be outdoors with the horses, and see what kind of information and insight comes to us to really help the world in a deeper way than just talking on video. So before we close off, I want to make sure that people know how to follow you, Jess. Where can they find you? Spell it out, let them know.
Okay, my website would be the first place. So that's jesscampmans.com, JessCampmans.com. I'm also on Instagram, Jess Guided by Equus, and Facebook, Guided by Equus with Butte Morgan Horses. So if you just kind of Google my name, you should be able to find all the ways and pathways you can come and find me. And I have started this year, I kind of took a step back, but I found what I needed to come back kind of in more of a space, and doing lots of free offerings. And I have a weekly horse wisdom healing message on YouTube. So find me on YouTube also.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for letting us know how they can reach out to you. I'm excited for us to continue to chat and see when we can release that really powerful episode. This is Diane Vick. I hope you had an inspirational day. Aloha.